Bill Reardon is an architect, and a very good one. Even in junior high school, he knew what he wanted to do, unlike many of his friends who didn't make up their minds until halfway through college. Bill earned a bachelor's degree in architecture from the University of Maryland. He wasn't able to pursue graduate school right away because the family needed to put his younger sister and brother through college. Instead, Bill was able to get a good job with a well-known architecture firm in Northern Virginia. He started at the bottom, doing nothing more than a draftsman's job. After all, you don't start designing skyscrapers right away. Nevertheless, Bill felt comfortable in his job and was completely familiar with the computer-aided design programs used. By being frugal with his income, Bill was able to save up the funds necessary to attend graduate school. He was fortunate enough to be accepted into the graduate program at Purdue University. His company saw him off with regret because they were pleased with his work. Bill's savings were not enough to cover all his expenses, so he had to work. He took a job as a draftsman for a local engineering and construction firm that did a lot of contract work for the city. He had a flexible work schedule, but still had most of his classes in the evenings. Since he often had to work for hours on the computer for both his employer and homework, he often found himself in the cafeteria late at night. He would find some quiet corner and settle down at the computer until it was time to go to class or go home. It was in the cafeteria one evening that he met Joan. Sometimes the cafeteria was so empty in the evenings that there were more workers than customers. Joan was one of those workers. Bill noticed her the first night she came to work. Although Joan was dressed in waitress-like clothes, with hardly any makeup on, and her hair styled in an unfashionable way, he recognized her as a very beautiful woman in both face and body. As time went on, they became more and more sociable with each other. She often brought him coffee without asking. Sometimes she would stay and chat with him for a few minutes, trying not to take up too much of his time if he was busy working on some project. Among other things, Bill learned that she was a single mom with a 1-year-old at home. And although county social services helped her with some income, she still had to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. Bill realized that there was a mutual attraction between them and eventually asked her out on a date Saturday night. Joan told him that she really wanted to go out with him, but she didn't have any friends or relatives who could watch the baby, and the cost of a babysitter was very high. Bill wasn't going to let the cost of a babysitter scare him off and told her that he would cover that expense. She was genuinely disgusted and ashamed that she was so poor that she had to rely on Bill's kindness to spend time with her. It was more than honorable for Bill to do so. On Friday after class, Bill walked into Joan's little apartment. Joan was already there and dressed for their date. Her outfit confirmed Bill's earlier assessment of her beautiful face. Joan's nanny was also there. Joan was anxious for Bill to see her little daughter, so she carried her into the living room to introduce them. Bill thought it was the most beautiful baby he had ever seen. Her name was Joyce. Thus began Bill and Joan's relationship. Over the next few months, Bill fell in love with Joan and her baby. He was not at all embarrassed by the fact that Joan was a single mom with a baby. Joan fell in love with Bill and was grateful that he had so willingly accepted the baby as part of their relationship. Joan admitted that she had given birth to the baby out of wedlock. According to her, she was in a long-term relationship with her high school boyfriend. When they were both attending community college, she became pregnant. Her boyfriend wanted her to have an abortion, but she refused. He soon left her and went off to college in another state. Since then, she has had to struggle with a baby and living expenses. Social services helped her and provided some income. Her family also helped her from time to time, but she wasn't very well off herself. She worked 2 jobs to further increase her income. After a few months of getting to know each other, they started sleeping together. When Bill was nearing the end of his master's degree, he asked Joan to marry him. Joan was overjoyed. She had found a man she loved, who really wanted to be the father of her child, and in fact, loved him as much as she did. After graduation, Bill, Joan, and Joyce moved back to Northern Virginia, where Bill found a job with his former employer. This time, because of his high level of education and experience, he was hired at a much higher level than before and at a much higher salary. Bill and Joan rented a 3-bedroom townhouse with a 2-car garage. It was more than enough for their small family. A year or so after they settled into their home, Joan became pregnant. They had a baby boy whom they named Richard, but he was nicknamed Richie. Bill continued to work successfully as an architect, but he disliked designing large buildings, shopping centers, and apartment complexes. Part of this dissatisfaction was due to the fact that he still only did a small portion of the design. In addition, he rarely got to see the results of his efforts because it usually took years before a project was completed, and the projects themselves were often out of state. What really interested him was designing houses. When Joyce was 7 years old and Richie was 5, Bill found a house for them to buy. From his perspective, it was perfect. It was on a cul-de-sac in a good neighborhood, and the school district had high grades. While to many people this house might have seemed ordinary, it wasn't to Bill. His architect's keen eye saw the perfect house where he could both raise his children and run his business. The house was a 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath mansion with a large living room, a large family room, and a large dining room. It also had a 2-car garage. But what attracted Bill the most was that the house had a full basement where he could set up his home architecture business. Although the basement was currently unfinished, Bill saw that it was set up in such a way that he could take clients, design projects, and make models when needed. In addition, the basement had French doors leading out to a small, private landscaped courtyard. The asking price was $700,000, and Bill quickly offered to buy the house for that amount. He knew that he would have to spend at least another $100,000 to renovate the entire house and finish the basement. Nevertheless, he felt it was well worth the price. Joan thought it was perfect too, and the kids loved that they would each have their own bedroom. 12 years later, Bill was thriving as a home designer. In addition to earning a good reputation as an architect who could design everything from mansions to quadplexes, he owned a number of patents on home design ideas. He designed a series of very low-cost houses suitable for people who essentially couldn't afford a regular bread and butter house. He also invented folding houses for people in less developed countries that allowed them to enjoy all the comforts and protection of home, including water, gas, and electricity, without the need for expensive and extensive foundations and construction work. It also had designs that could be added to from time to time without the house looking like an unsightly appendage to the original design. A family could start with a 1-story, 2-bedroom home, and years later have a large, beautiful 4- or 5-bedroom home that grew with the family and its finances. Shortly after Richie went to kindergarten, Joan expressed an interest in working. She decided to pursue a career in real estate. She felt that by working as a real estate agent, she would be able to make her own schedule and thus be home with her family when needed. In addition, she would be able to earn a little money from time to time, which would make her feel like she was contributing to the family budget. Bill was in agreement with her career choice and thought it would be a good idea and would allow her to get out of the house and do something interesting. The cost of the real estate agent training program was very inexpensive. In just a few weeks, Joan had already passed her realtor exams as well as her state exams. She decided to join a local real estate company that only had about a dozen offices. As it turned out, Joan was a natural-born real estate salesperson. Her good looks and pleasant personality made working with people the perfect profession for her. After a slow start and a few missteps, she became successful both as an agent representing sellers and as an agent representing buyers. That being said, she enjoyed working with buyers more. As time went on, Joan became more and more successful in real estate. After a few years, she became one of the top agents in her company and was making a significant contribution to the family budget. Eventually, an opportunity arose to become a managing broker in a new office, and Joan applied. In addition to having all the certifications and endorsements to her original license, Joan took the time to get her broker's license. Her company was happy to have her to manage the new real estate office. Under Joan's leadership, she quickly had 17 real estate agents. Not only did she continue to make money on her commissions, but she also earned a percentage of her subordinate agents' commissions. As the reader can probably guess, Joan's dedication to her career was taking up more and more of the family's time and Bill's. Joan left home early and was gone most of the day. She often worked weekends when there was an open house to babysit. She also organized ongoing training for her agents on weekends and evenings so that they would have a free week to work with clients. As Bill's business was centered in his home, Bill began to take on more and more family responsibilities. Bill would get up early to make breakfast and pack lunches for Joyce and Richie and walk them to the bus stop. In the evenings, he helped them with their homework, participated in school activities, and attended sporting events. If his wife was running late, Bill took responsibility for cooking dinner. He became quite a good cook and often cooked with Joyce, trying new recipes. Intimate contact between Bill and Joan became less and less frequent. Coming home, Joan was often tired, and after dinner and a glass of wine went to bed early. Bill made several attempts to rekindle their intimacy, but none were successful. Bill's story began on a late spring morning. He was driving home from the airport where he had dropped his wife off to send her to the annual 3-day real estate conference. As he turned the corner onto his street, he noticed a white SUV parked at the curb in front of his house. As he turned into his driveway, he saw a woman sitting on the porch steps. He stopped the car in the driveway rather than put it in the garage to greet his guest. When he got out of the car, the woman on the porch stood and waited for him to approach her. Bill assessed the woman from a distance. She was about 5 feet 4 inches tall. Her light brown hair was gathered on her head. She had a pleasant face. It would have been pretty if she had been wearing makeup, but she wasn't. From the wrinkles on her face, Bill realized she was in her 40s or 45 years old. She had a good figure, which she didn't try to show off in her slate blue pants and loose white blouse. Nevertheless, Bill noticed that she had a narrow waist and an impressive rack. The lady spoke first. "Are you Bill Reardon?" she asked. At the same time, she extended her hand for a shake. "Yes," Bill answered both her question and the handshake. Before he could ask the lady what her name was, she spoke again. "I'm happy to meet you. My name is Beverly Dumont." "What can I do for you, Miss Dumont? Perhaps I have an appointment with you that I forgot about?" "Please, call me Beverly." "And if I may call you Bill," she said. "And no, we don't have an appointment. However, it is important for me to talk to you." Bill replied, "Beverly and Bill, then." Bill noticed that Beverly wasn't smiling and didn't look particularly happy. "Please come inside." Bill opened the front door in front of her. He noticed that Beverly had lifted her backpack, which seemed quite heavy. Once inside the house, Bill led Beverly into the spacious family room. Beverly chose a seat on the couch in front of the large coffee table. Bill was ready to settle into his favorite lazy boy chair. Then he remembered his manners and asked his guest if she would like something to drink. "A glass of wine would be nice," she declared. "Dark red wine, if you have it," she added. "Strong red wine is my favorite," Bill replied. Bill went to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of Carnivore, his favorite Cabernet Sauvignon. He returned with 2 glasses of wine and a bottle, which he placed on the coffee table. Beverly immediately took several large sips of the wine. Bill noticed that she was preoccupied with something. "What can I do for you, Beverly?" asked Bill, a more serious note in his voice now. Beverly took another sip of wine and then said, "What I have come to discuss with her is very personal and very difficult to talk about. Your feelings will be greatly hurt, so I'll just state it bluntly. I am the owner of Dumont Furniture Rental and Staging Company. Our main source of income is staging homes that are for sale. Our best contacts are real estate companies and real estate agents. I don't do it myself. I handle the day-to-day operations of the company. My husband, Leonard, is the company's marketing representative, so he personally works with brokers and agents. Your wife's office knows him well. And so is your wife." The way Beverly uttered the last sentence made Bill's stomach knot. "Go on, Beverly," he said sharply. "I'm sorry to tell you this, Bill, but my husband and your wife are having an affair. As far as I can tell, it has been going on for over 7 months. They meet at least once a week, usually in a house that is for sale and furnished enough to have a bed in it. The house is always listed as by appointment only, and of course, your wife won't allow any meetings while they're using it. Now it was Bill's turn to take a big sip of wine. I really find that hard to believe, Beverly. Do you have any proof? Photographs? Videotapes? Yes and no, Beverly replied. At first, I only had vague feelings that something wasn't as it should be. It was little things that seemed odd to me. For example, my husband didn't get as many things done in a day as he should have. At times, I couldn't reach him, and his cell phone was off, and I couldn't find him on Friend Finder. Then I thought I could smell perfume from him from time to time. This coincided with the days I couldn't find him. There were other incidents, but eventually it dawned on me that he might be having an affair. I can't put into words how exhausted I was inside after coming to that conclusion. I was nervous, I lost weight, I couldn't do my job. I was a complete mess. So I decided to find out the bottom line and hired a private investigation company to follow him. A week later, they informed me that he was seen entering a house for sale with a woman. They arrived in different cars. The woman's car had a real estate agency logo on the door. They usually stayed at the house for about 2, sometimes 3 hours and then left separately. It was not difficult for a private detective agency to determine that the woman was Joan Reardon, your wife. This pattern of appointments was repeated from week to week. However, I don't have a single photograph or videotape. That's what today is all about. I'm sorry to dump all this on you, Bill, in such a cold-blooded way. In fact, I wish someone would address me in a similar manner. Then I wouldn't have to be plagued by doubt and uncertainty for months. Bill was at a loss as to what to say and how to answer. He was about to tell Beverly that he still didn't believe her when their conversation was interrupted by a call on Beverly's cell phone. Beverly apologized, raising her hand to indicate that she needed to take the call. Bill could only hear one side of the conversation. "How are the preparations going?" she asked the person on the phone. "Are all the rooms ready? Audio and video? Will we be able to test it soon? Okay, I'll sign off." Beverly hung up the phone and turned to Bill. "May I log on to your internet server, please?" Saying this, Beverly pulled a laptop computer out of her backpack and set it on the coffee table. Bill, like a robot, typed in the password to connect to the Cox internet. As Beverly turned on the laptop, she continued to talk to Bill. "You just got back from the airport, right?" Answering her own question, she continued. "You took your wife on a flight to Atlanta for a regional real estate conference." "Yes," Bill replied. "She goes there every year. She told me she takes a lot of good information on how to market real estate, how to attract buyers and sellers, and so on. Sometimes she buys new software that comes in handy in her office, and she talks to various real estate-related companies." "Like mine, for example," Beverly interrupted. "I took my husband to the airport about 2 hours ago. I'm sure he's on the same flight as your wife." "My husband attends the same conference every year. He even gives a presentation on the benefits of staging in front of a combined audience. It's been very compelling and has brought in a lot of clients, both real estate offices and individual agents." "Did you know, Bill, that according to my investigation, your wife has no hotel reservations at the convention? Not in her name, nor in the name of her company. I believe she intends to check into my husband's suite." Beverly glanced at her watch. "Their plane should be landing any minute now. I don't expect a call from my husband until he arrives at the hotel. Your wife is probably going to call you as well." Bill replied, "Yes, she said she would call when she landed, and again later after she checked into her room." Bill felt a knot forming in his stomach that was getting bigger and bigger. "Tell me what's going on, Beverly," he commanded. "You deserve to know everything," Beverly replied. "I have long suspected that your wife and my husband intended to spend time at the hotel. I wanted to catch him red-handed on video. A few days ago, I rented a room at their hotel on behalf of my company. Yesterday and this morning, my investigators placed numerous video cameras and recording devices around the rooms. The cameras are connected to a server that broadcasts what is happening live to me through my computer and the same computer installed in my attorney's office. Everything will be recorded. Bill inquired, "What's stopping anyone else from seeing the image?" "A password is required to access the site. Only myself and my attorney have the password," Beverly replied. Bill's cell phone rang. Judging by the ringtone, it was Joan. "Just got here," came Joan's cheerful voice as soon as he answered. "How was the flight?" asked Bill. "Easy. I decided to treat myself and flew first class. I had a nice lunch and even managed to take a little nap. Of course, the company will pay for all that, as well as the conference and the hotel room." Bill finished the thought. "And you'll be able to write it off on your taxes as a business expense, right?" "That's right, honey," she said. "Next year, you'll have to come with me and we'll make a vacation out of it. Atlanta's a great place for tourists." "And lovers," Bill said without even thinking about it. Beverly looked up quickly and shook her head as if to tell Bill not to hint at his suspicions. "Then it's a date," Bill quickly added. "Even if you have to hang out with your realtor friends during the day, we'll have ourselves a vacation. At night, I'll only want to see you in your bright red negligee." Joan replied, "My luggage is here. I have to go. I'll call you tonight from the hotel. It will probably be early tonight because there's a social cocktail party scheduled for 7 o'clock in the boardroom." "Okay, baby," Bill signed off. "I love you. Don't ever forget that." "I love you too. Bye." Bill turned to Beverly. "I still can't believe she did that to me, to us, to our family." "I didn't want to believe it either," Beverly said. "All the little clues were eating away at me like acid. Now, after all these months, I have to find out for sure." Beverly typed a few characters on the computer. "This is it," she exclaimed. The phone rang. She looked at the caller ID, noted for Bill that it was her investigator, Paul Drake, and picked up the phone. "I can see everything," she said. Again, Bill heard only Beverly's version of the conversation. "Yes, the image is very clear. How do I switch between rooms? What about the sound? Okay, I'll turn up the volume." Bill then heard a voice behind the computer. "How can you hear me?" Beverly replied, "Clear as a bell." The voice continued. "I'm going to go from room to room in the suite and I want you to follow me, switching between cameras. I'm going to talk as I go. Check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3. "It's working," Beverly assessed. The investigator's voice continued. "I know they've landed. Now we'll clean up the room and leave. When they arrive, we'll be in the lobby and I'll text you about what we see and take pictures of." "Thank you, Paul. I'll look forward to your calls." Beverly turned to Bill and said, "I need to make one more call to my lawyer." Beverly hit speed dial on her cell phone, and her attorney answered immediately. "You're online. Okay, so you see and hear everything? And it's all being recorded, right?" Hanging up the phone, Beverly took another big sip of wine, emptying her glass. She poured herself another glass. Then she turned her attention back to Bill. "I know it was intrusive of me to burden you like that. Even if you believed me, I'm not sure you'd want to see it live." As time went on, Bill became more and more sullen. He told Beverly that he would have to drink something stronger if he wanted to get through this. He headed for the kitchen and then turned and asked Beverly if she wanted something stronger too. Beverly settled for a bottle of wine. Bill returned from the kitchen with a bottle of bourbon and a shot glass. While they waited, Beverly tried to turn the conversation to a lighter note. "My investigators told me you have a daughter and a son. Is that true?" "Yes, it is. My daughter's name is Joyce. She is actually my adopted daughter. She was a year old when I met Joan. She is now in her second year of university. Although it is not far away, we decided to rent a small apartment for her, which she shares with friends. She is involved in sports, art, and many other activities, but manages to come home on weekends if possible." "And your boy?" asked Beverly, wanting to keep the conversation going. "His name is Richard, but everyone calls him Richie. He was born 2 years after Joan and I were married. He's in high school now. He plays sports, too. This weekend, he's going away to a football game. He'll be home Saturday afternoon." Bill thought for a moment, then added, "It's probably best if they both go away for the weekend." There was an awkward lull in the conversation until Bill turned to Beverly. "What's your story? Who is this husband who is cohabitating with my wife?" Beverly sighed, then began her story. Dumont Furniture Rental and Staging Company was founded by my parents over 30 years ago. I worked for them until they retired, at which point I took over the management. When they passed away, the business passed to me. The company was moderately successful, and as it grew, I realized I needed help, especially in marketing our services. I met Leonard Lenny about 7 years ago. Although he was 5 years younger than me, we hit it off right away. Lenny is very charismatic and very chatty. He's a natural-born salesman. After we got married, he got into marketing. This included advertising, sales, customer service. He created our company website. In his line of work, Lenny was away from home a lot. He regularly traveled to every real estate office within a 100-mile radius that needed staging, as well as companies opening offices that needed office furniture. Lenny was picking up a lot of clients. He was earning his paycheck. Now I suspect he was acting even before he met your wife. But for some reason, he was particularly fond of her. I think it's the longest affair he's ever had. Beverly continued. Even though Joan is 10 years older than my husband, she is still a very beautiful woman. And, like my husband, she is also a born salesman. I guess together they sold each other everything they could and told each other what attractive people they were. Bill and Beverly sat in silence for some time. Finally, the anxious silence was broken by a message that came over Beverly's cell phone. "They've checked into the hotel," was all the message said, but it was accompanied by a picture of Beverly's husband and Bill's wife holding hands at the front desk. "They are on their way up," the next message read. Bill, who still hadn't looked at Beverly's computer screen, rose from his chair, grabbed a bottle of bourbon and a glass, and sat down on the couch next to Beverly. She wrapped her arms around herself in preparation for what she feared she was about to see. The sound was quite sensitive, and they heard the key card being inserted into the lock on the door. The door opened quickly, and Lenny quickly lowered their luggage to the floor. Before the door even closed, Lenny turned Joan around to face him and kissed her. Joan reciprocated him. "No more waiting, baby," Lenny said. "Not a minute more." Without further ado, the two adulterers got down to it, while Bill and Beverly watched. Beverly was no longer a woman in control of her feelings. She cried. How could he? She asked herself. I loved him so much. Bill put his arms around Beverly and pulled her to him. He was just as broken by what he had just witnessed. Tears were streaming down his face as well. I needed that, Joan said. Hang on a bit, I need to call home. Bill watched as his wife propped herself up on the edge of the bed. She picked up the phone and dialed a number. A few seconds later, Bill's phone rang. He didn't know if he should answer the call. He answered while simultaneously watching Beverly's computer screen. Hey, honey. Everything's checked out. I'm going to take a nap before I go downstairs to social services. Just want you to know that I love you. Bill stared at the screen as Lenny sat down in bed behind Joan. Bill couldn't take it anymore and simply said, Goodbye, I'll see you Sunday afternoon. He then hung up the phone. On the screen, Bill saw that Joan reacted to this as an abrupt end to the conversation, but paid no attention to it. Bill couldn't look at it any longer. He didn't think Beverly could either. They were both still crying. Bill tried to divert his and Beverly's attention from the events in the hotel room by suggesting that perhaps she would like to see his architectural office in the basement. Beverly readily agreed. He led her down the stairs to his offices. Bill brought a bottle of bourbon with him, and Beverly brought wine. He showed her his computer-aided design, CAD system, a modeling table, and a customer lounge. Beverly was impressed with the many drawings and photographs on the walls of the homes Bill had designed. Eventually, they moved to a small outdoor patio in the basement. Bill and Beverly discussed their plans. Both felt that divorce was the only way out, although Bill wasn't so sure. Beverly was in good financial shape. She was the sole owner of her company. Essentially, Lenny was a salaried employee. As valuable as he had been in marketing Dumont over the past few years, he was expendable. For the next few hours, Bill and Beverly tried to do things that took their minds off the computer. Other than that, nothing happened while the two adulterers were at their social hour. Bill volunteered to make sandwiches and Beverly heated up soup. They passed the time by pushing the events at the hotel to the back of their minds. At about 10:30 p.m., Bill and Beverly heard voices on the computer and settled down on the couch with drinks. The adulterers returned to their room. Although Joan couldn't tear herself away from Lenny, he dismissed her, saying he had to call his wife. Beverly's cell phone rang. "Hey, baby," she said. "Hey, doll," Lenny replied. "I've already checked in. It's a great room. It's a suite. It has a sitting area, bar, microwave, and refrigerator. Thank you." "You're welcome, dear. I thought you could use the extra room to socialize with clients while you tell them about our company's capabilities. It can all be blamed on marketing." Lenny's attention was divided, and he struggled to focus on the phone conversation. He needed to finish it. "I'm really tired, babe. I'll call you tomorrow. I love you." Beverly replied through clenched teeth. "You don't know how much I love you." They watched their spouses for a few more minutes. Joan asked Lenny, "How long have you been playing with your wife?" Lenny replied, "Since we got married. I love women. They're like flowers just waiting to be plucked. Married women are especially attractive because they usually don't want a permanent relationship and often tell me they still love their husbands." "Do you?" Joan replied, "I love my husband to death. He saved me and my daughter from a life of poverty. We have a wonderful son. Bill saved enough money to send them both to college. He sent me to real estate school. We have a very nice house and lots of friends. We have a wonderful life together." "Then why is that?" inquired Lenny. "I found out a while ago," Joan continued. "When I was just starting out as a real estate agent, a wealthy buyer made me an offer. He said he would buy this house from me at a specified price if I would sleep with him. He was nice looking and very polite to me. I reluctantly agreed. He took me to his hotel room, and I loved it. And I got a huge commission. Officially, I guess that makes me a whore. However, after that incident, I decided that if I needed to do it again to sell a house, I would. It didn't happen often, maybe a couple times a year, but I did what was necessary to sell. Bill was very happy for me and said that my personality was what made me a great real estate agent. He was partly right. In fact, you are the first man with whom I have had a lasting romance. However, I don't expect our relationship to last forever. Eventually, we will grow tired of each other until we just stop. Then you'll just become a secret, pleasant memory." "I should get home before I get so intoxicated I can't drive," Beverly announced. She pulled a pen and notepad out of her backpack and wrote something down. "If you want to watch this disaster on your computer, here's the website address and password." She turned off the computer, closed the lid, and put it in her backpack. "I'll be back here Sunday morning when they leave the hotel to give you the DVDs my attorney has burned. Let me know your intentions. I intend to meet with my husband right away." Bill escorted Beverly to her car. When he opened the door in front of her, she turned to him and gave him a tight hug that lasted several minutes. In fact, they hugged each other. Then she drove away. Back at the house, Bill walked to his office and unplugged the laptop, which was connected to a monitor, printer, and other peripherals. He brought it into the family room, set it on the coffee table, and plugged it in. Then, turning it on, he typed in the website address and password. He didn't see his wife in the first image of the hotel room and switched to another until the image of the bed appeared. It was night and the lights were off, but the low light of the video camera showed his wife lying in bed with Beverly's husband, Lenny. For the first time, Bill was able to analyze his feelings. He was hurt, very hurt. How could Joan do this to him, to them, to their marriage? And he was humiliated. Not only that, but Joan admitted that she had been having fun with other men to sell houses. That admission alone drove him to believe that divorce was the only way out. Bill thought their life was comfortable, and that's when Bill became angry. How could she do this to him, to the family he loved, to the children, to the marriage? He felt he couldn't justify Joan's actions. The only thing left to do was divorce. He would not become a willful cuckold. His pride and self-esteem would not allow him to be married to a woman who showed him such disrespect. Bill continued to drink. Too much. A drowsiness came over him. The last thing he remembered was around 11 p.m. when Lenny woke Joan from a deep sleep. Sunday afternoon. The cab stopped in front of the Reardon house. It could have parked in the driveway, but Joan Reardon's car was parked there. Joan Reardon got out of the cab just as the trunk opened. As she looked around, she noticed her daughter Joyce sitting on the steps of the covered porch. She turned to her daughter. "Help me with my luggage, please." Joan turned to pick up her luggage, which the driver placed on the curb. She was going to leave one bag for Joyce, but when she looked for her, she was still standing on the porch steps, not moving. With some difficulty, Joan dragged the suitcase across the lawn, slinging one carry-on bag over her shoulder and holding the briefcase in one hand. Joyce watched her expressionlessly. When Joan finally reached the cement walkway in front of the porch, she put everything on the floor. She was visibly angry. "You could have helped me, you know." Joyce didn't react or say anything. "What are you even doing home?" "I thought you were at school." Joyce replied, "I came home Saturday morning when I found out you were leaving for your conference. I wanted some one-on-one time with Daddy." "And where the hell is your dad?" "He knew what flight I was coming on. I waited for him for over an hour. I called him probably 10 times, but there was no answer. All the calls went to voicemail. What the hell is he doing that's more important than picking me up on time?" Joyce spoke for the first time. "Daddy and Richie are at Lake Ann Park." Joan became indignant. "Why the hell is he there and not at the airport?" "They're having a beer together, relaxing and bonding," Joyce replied. "I don't know what's gotten into him, but I'm going to give him hell when he gets home." Joan climbed the porch steps and went to the front door. Trying to open it, she found it locked. Damn it. She cursed and rummaged through her purse for her keys. Joyce watched her with quiet amusement. When Joan tried to unlock the door with her key, she found that it didn't fit the lock. "What the devil is going on here?" she said frustratedly. "Your keys won't fit anymore, Mom. Dad changed the locks yesterday." "Why the devil did he do that?" resented Joan. "They were working fine when I left." Turning to face her daughter, Joan noticed a pile of 7 or 8 black plastic garbage bags at the far end of the porch. There were also 2 cardboard boxes on a patio table and 2 large suitcases next to the railing. "What's all this stuff doing here?" Joan asked. Asked Joan. Joyce stood up and looked at the far end of the porch. "It's all your stuff, Mom, all of it. All your clothes are in garbage bags, as are your shoes, and all the stuff from the dresser. Your makeup is in one of the cardboard boxes, and your jewelry is in another. The 3 of us spent half of Saturday packing your stuff. I packed the suitcases myself. They contain what I think you need to have with you for work and vacation in the near future. You should take the suitcases, boxes, and any trash bags that can fit in your car. Richie will pick up anything you leave behind and put it in the storage room we rented for you." "What's going on here?" exclaimed Joan. She felt a knot begin to knot in her stomach. "Dad knows all about your extramarital affairs. We all know." Joan replied, not quite sure what she was saying. "That can't be true. I've been so careful." "Maybe you have been careful, Mother. Of course, Pa never suspected you of adultery. But your buddy, Leonard Wilson, didn't. Beverly Dumont has suspected him of having an affair for months. They found out Friday night how duplicitous you both are." "That can't be. I was in Atlanta and he was here." "Beverly hired a private investigation company to spy on you and your boyfriend. She set up a video and audio link in the hotel room where you were staying. The live images were transmitted to the internet, which Beverly set up to view and record. Every move you made, every word you said in the hotel room was monitored and recorded." Oh, no! Joan screamed and collapsed on the steps beside her daughter. It can't be real. After Beverly left Daddy alone Friday night, Daddy kept watching. I think it almost killed him. He drank a lot that night and eventually passed out on the couch in front of the computer. I got home early Saturday morning and found him asleep on the couch. As I was trying to wake him up, I noticed that the computer was on and had everything visible on it. After watching for a few minutes, I realized it was you and Mr. Asshole. I let out an involuntary scream, which woke my dad up. When he realized it was me and saw what I was looking at, he slammed the lid on the computer and said, "You weren't supposed to see that." I started crying and asking my dad what was going on. He didn't want to tell me, but I made him tell me everything. We even turned on the computer so I could see what was going on between you and Mr. Asshole. I made Daddy take a shower and get cleaned up. Then I made a Virgin Mary to help him with his hangover, followed by a light breakfast and coffee. After tearing ourselves away from the computer, we tried to make a plan of action. Saturday afternoon, Richie came back from the football game, and we told him what had happened. We all cried a lot. And then I got angry. We all got angry. How dare you do that to our daddy? Based on what you did and what you said, Richie and I decided to kick you out. Dad agreed. We spent the rest of the day packing up all your stuff. You're not spending another day in this house with our daddy. Joan stammered. But where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Daddy was kind enough to rent a room at the Hilton Extended Living boarding house near your office. He paid your rent for 3 months. By the way, Beverly does the same for her husband, only she only pays for his room for 1 month. Maybe the two of you will meet tonight, compare notes, and have some silly fun again. And maybe when Mr. Asshole runs out of rent, he can move in with you because he won't have a job that will allow him to get a lot of housing. I don't want to leave my home, Joan sobbed. I love Bill. He is my life. I can't live without him. Joyce replied without emotion. You have to leave. No one else here needs you. Not Dad, not Richie, not me. Besides, you should know that Daddy has an appointment with a lawyer on Monday. He's going to file for divorce. No, 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 no. Please, no, replied Joan. Joyce continued her blitz of questioning. Dad intends to keep this house. After all, it is his place of business. Besides, he'll keep the house because both Richie and I will be living with him, and he'll have custody of Richie since he's still a minor, but old enough to choose which parent he wants to live with. There will be no child support or child support payments since you make a very good living as a real estate broker. Dad, who fully funded your IRA, will let you keep it, but will not make any more payments on it. Besides, you'll now be paying for your car, auto insurance, maintenance, and property taxes. Joan looked into her daughter's unsympathetic eyes. How can you be so insensitive? Daddy told me many times how much he fell in love with you when you first met. He told me he fell in love with me then too. He told me he couldn't have loved me less if you and he had more daughters after you were married. And I couldn't love him more, even if he was my biological daughter. I'm Daddy's little girl. He took care of you and me for 20 years. He provided us with a beautiful home, wonderful vacations, and sent Richie and me to college. When I found out what you did to my daddy, it killed all my affection for you. How could you do that to him? What made you do it? Tell me why. Joan, unable to stop sobbing, replied, At first I just got caught up in the pressure of selling the house. A handsome and charming man offered to buy an expensive house at an exorbitant price if I would go to bed with him. I really wanted to show Bill that I could be a successful real estate salesman and contribute to the family budget, not sit at home and do nothing. A few months later, something similar happened, although I must admit I was more flirtatious with this client. After that, it became apparent that I could use myself to sell houses. It didn't happen that often, maybe a couple times a year, but it just seemed to be a factor in the selling process. I knew several other female agents who did this too, some more often than others. Then, about 8 months ago, Leonard came into the office. He was marketing Dumont's steading business and was giving presentations to my sales agents. Some of them started using him to design the homes they were selling. As a result, he started showing up at the office more and more often. He openly flirted with me. I found him not only charming, but also handsome. We started going out to lunch together. It got to the point where we were holding hands, hugging, and eventually kissing. One day he took me to one of the houses my office had put up for sale. He wanted to show me how nice it looked after he had decorated it. Among the decorations was a bed. It wasn't long before we ended up in the same bed. That's how our romance began. So first you became a whore to sell houses, and then you became a whore for some fast-talking salesman. I thought I was being very careful, but apparently I wasn't. I never wanted to hurt your father. I tried to be as affectionate with him as I always was. I thought he would never suspect. Joyce spoke up. You were careful, Mom. Dad didn't even realize you had become a whore. Unfortunately, Mr. Asshole wasn't as careful as you were, and Beverly began to suspect him. Eventually, using the services of a private investigation agency, she got to the bottom of it and found out who you were. She set up her own little operation to find out definitively what the extent of your relationship with Mr. Asshole was. Please, baby, don't chase me away. This is my home. Your Bill needs me, Joan pleaded. I don't think so, Mama, Joyce replied. For as long as I can remember, Dad has been making breakfast for Richie and me in the mornings. He also made our school lunches for us. Since he worked from home and made his own schedule, he did his own grocery shopping and took our clothes to the dry cleaners. The only thing he doesn't do is clean the house or do laundry. We have a maid for that. He also often cooked dinner when you said you'd be late for one reason or another. Joan continued to make her argument. But your father needs me for other things too, like companionship and intimacy. I don't think Dad is more interested in socializing with you. Besides, I'll be around now. I'm moving back home and will be traveling to classes for the next few years. Richie is going to do the same. We're going to take care of Daddy. Besides, Dad still looks good. We've already talked him into shaving off his beard. I intend to enroll him in the gym and help him lose 20 pounds. And I'll cook nutritious meals for him that will help too. When he's at fighting weight, I'll take him shopping for a new closet, including suits, tracksuits, casual clothes, shoes, etc. Remember, Richie and I are going to let him out of the house more often. We're going to take him to school sporting events and theater performances. Daddy will become more cosmopolitan and less reclusive. As for female companionship and intimacy, I have a pretty teacher of convenience who has been divorced for a long time. Her son and daughter are in college. I think she and Dad would make a cute couple. Also, there is a young woman in my computer drafting class who is a widow and goes to school on the state's bereavement plan because her husband was killed 2 years ago in the Middle East. She has a little girl at home who is just adorable. She and Daddy would be a cute couple, too. And don't forget Beverly DeMont. She's a very pretty woman with a great figure. I wouldn't mind if they got into a relationship. Joan interrupted. Do you know Leonard's wife? Where did you meet her? Beverly came by the house late this morning. She's a very elegant lady and didn't deserve what you and Asshole did to her. Beverly, Dad, Richie, and I all had a late lunch together. And finally, Mom, Joyce continued, you should know that before I let you touch Daddy again. Joan felt the depth of Joyce's anger. It's getting late, Mom. Before you go, I have a few things for you to do. First, I have the address of your new home and the key to your apartment. Joyce held out a manila envelope to Joan. Next, I have a collection of DVDs for you to watch. Beverly brought them when she visited us today. Maybe you and Zazrans can entertain yourselves with them in the evenings. Receiving the gifts, Joan collapsed on the porch steps. They were physical evidence that her future had indeed changed in such an unimaginable way as Joyce had described. Now, Mother, I've got to go. I'm meeting Daddy and Richie tonight at a nice restaurant where we're going to make plans for the future. Please, Joan pleaded. Is there nothing I can do to make the pain go away? To earn a second chance? To be forgiven? I can't think of anything, Mother. Maybe in time we'll figure something out. Richie and I will probably eventually forgive you because you're our mother. Dad will probably forgive you too, but it won't be anytime soon. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.